Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Good morning.
Morning, caller. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right. Thank you.
I think I hear we've both all got doggies living in.
Yes. My host's brother and his family are away on a week's holiday, and we have two black Labradors, one old lady and one younger boy, and they are very smelly and very hairy, but very sweet.
Yes, I know. And it's very hot, smelly and hairy around here.
Yeah. They are cute, actually, but I don't think. Well, I've got a new respect for. I have several clients with big, hairy Labradors, and I've got a new respect for their cleaning ladies. Put it like that.
I've got a new respect for people who own dogs. Full stop.
Yeah.
Why do they do it? I mean, I know they're lovely and everything, but they're quite a lot of work. It's like having a baby again.
Well, I must say, it's impressive you took one on at all.
Well, I some friends of ours are looking after Wilfred for Steph while she's away, and they've got their son to stay, and it's the first time he's been out in stupor. And I've obviously in my cups at some point said, "Oh, I'll have him for a couple of days."
Yeah,
but I meant in the daytime. I didn't really mean ongoing, but
permanently. Yeah.
But he was very good last night. There was one cat fight outside the bedroom window which woke him up slightly, but he really he's been an absolute diamond. He's been very good, considering he must be wondering what's going on and who is this new person look after me and where's my mum.
Yes, their needs are quite simple: a stroke and water and food.
Yeah, and walks, and that's it. Really.
Yeah, it is really. Yeah.
Yes. So, what else has been happening in your week then?
Strange actually. Bit of a strange week. We woke up on Monday morning to find we had no internet, either on the home Wi-Fi, which is BT, or, and this is strange, on the mini SIM in my iPad, which is Vodafone, which meant that the blockage, whatever it was, went across multiple networks.
Oh my God.
So then my friend went to a meeting 10 miles away in the next county, and it was off there too, so it wasn't just us.
Well, I'd be thinking it was the end of the world if it was.
Well, I must say I was quite disturbed because there are quite a lot of military installations around here. We're not far from all of that poisoning going on in Salisbury. We're not far from GCHQ. I was worried about what this meant, actually. Yeah. I couldn't do anything all day or night. Nothing. You can't do anything. No. Except I managed to get a few low-level messages in and out of Facebook Messenger, which meant that there was some capacity, but tiny. I mean, it was both the Vodafone SIM and the BT home internet were saying, that sign you get that tells you how many bars up you've got, strength. But it's saying that was perfectly normal on both things, but it wasn't working.
Yeah, I've been told that little thing is just to reassure.
Oh, it probably is. Well, in that circumstance, it's the opposite of reassuring. It's frustrating, quite frankly. Yeah. Anyway, we couldn't do anything at all. I got messages in and out of Facebook Messenger, which meant I could ask people to Google for me to see if they could see a fault in our area. No, there was nothing online. But it also meant I could postpone calls, one-to-one calls, and I could get other clients to post in my groups that I was offline and not to worry, I'd be back as soon as possible. I did miss a one-to-one client, and I did miss a small business big magic group, which is a bummer, and I never liked doing that. Yeah. And I had a weird, upsetting morning while I was struggling trying to get online, and there was information I particularly wanted to read, so I was quite cross. But once at lunchtime, I just went, damn, and relaxed and accepted it. My groceries were delivered in the morning, so I managed to place the order the day before. One of the dogs got out and was recovered. I got 2 loads of washing done. I had a shower. I thought, right, well, I'll read a book on Kindle, which promptly ran out of charge, but somehow Whispernet let me sync it with my iPad so I could keep reading. Plus, I did 2 phone calls, which are, comparatively low tech for me. You know how much I generally don't really love phone calls, but I spoke to 2 human beings. It was an odd day where you're reminded you're not in charge of very much, and sometimes the big you just intends that you have an unscheduled Monday off.
Yes.
So I had an unscheduled Monday off.
Yeah, well, that's what happens here when the power goes off.
I know. Well, if you're a digital nomad, all you can be is a nomad. You can't be a digital nomad that day, can you?
No, you just have to think of something else to do.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've had my 21-day challenge has come to an end. It's still technically going because it's 21 days, not 14, but it's just, dribs and drabs of support, really. Do you want to know my stats?
Yes.
Okay, 40 people started this one, half what started the other one.
Yep.
Last one. 10 actively participated, because I just did a little thing to say who's actually got to at least this stage of the game, and 10 people had. And a lot of them were going on further, which was nice. And it attracted 3 new members to Clicks and Leads Academy,
very good.
Which is exactly the same as last time, actually, but double the people signed up and about the same number participated. So this is a new way of getting clients into the membership club. Do you rely on Facebook ads to get the initial 40? No.
No. So your Facebook ad dramas drop away if you can make this work?
Yes, they do. It seems to be that they came from I've just done a purge on my mailing list. Anyone who hasn't opened an email for the last 12 emails has been got rid of, because Drip charge you by the amount of people you've got on your list.
Yeah.
And I had something like several thousand, quite a few thousand. And when I saw how many hadn't opened my last 12 emails, I thought, well, there's no point in you being there. So I just deleted them.
Yeah, slash and burn. Yep.
It's quite terrifying to do that, because it means, when you're sending out to several thousand people and now you're only sending out to a couple of thousand.
No, I've done it recently.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying. But you've got to do it. Really.
What's the point? If they're not opening them, there's no point, is there?
Well, that's right, because even, it's not even as if they're opening but not clicking. If they're not even opening, you might as well not do it. So, it's something I really enjoy, but I've listened to a James Schramko thing recently on running membership challenges as a marketing thing. And apparently what you have to do is, I've been giving away everything and trying to get them right through the whole process. Whereas actually, that's probably a bit overwhelming for people. So I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to do another one in September and trim it down so they just get one or 2 outcomes rather than 6 or 7 outcomes.
Okay.
And then, then hopefully, people who, I don't know how you can better that. I mean, 3 out of 10 is not bad. I don't think 30% conversion. So.
No, I think that's very good.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is, obviously, we've covered the dog thing. That's it for my week so far.
I love that the dog is called Wilfred Owen, one of my favourite war poets.
Well, I didn't know who he was, so it went straight over my head.
Okay.
But no, he is named after the poet, yes.
Yes.
I must
of course, because he's Steph's dog.
So what's fueled your fire this week then?
Well, I started my July pilot for the low-carb group. We've got, I think we're about 15 or 16 people now, me plus my 3 one-to-ones and one lady who isn't paying because I owed her something. I think we're about 10 payers so far, and I'm happy for joiners to join any time in July. As you know, it's 90 days for 90 quid. Next time it will be more expensive, because I have done 10 induction calls in the last week, which even at 90 quid a pop is not hard going, but it's intensive. Let's put it like that. But it's definitely fun, and it's definitely going to help. And they're at the moment, they're mostly women. There's a man who is a husband who's joining in, and then there's a man who's trying to join but can't work out how to send digital money, so he'll have to catch up. And they're anything from 3/4 stone to 5 stone overweight that they would like to shift just by making this one dietary change to the low carb way of life. I've had a lot of conversations about crisps and biscuits and changing habits, and they all start, the first 20 minutes is all, you won't make me give up my whole nut, will you? You won't make me give up my, yes, I will. Honestly, if you want to have a result here, but I promise you it won't hurt, because the foods that you get to eat are just as delicious in a different way. And several proudly reported, so all my inductions started last Thursday, which is a week ago. Several proudly reported in after only a day or 3 that they felt better. It was easier than anticipated, and they'd said, hold the chips.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I bet if everyone thought about the one thing that they secretly know they eat too much of, but perhaps wouldn't admit to anyone, and if they just cut that one thing out, it would make a difference.
Well, it's interesting. Yesterday afternoon's call, which was fun because it was quite challenging, and it was the husband and wife, there were quite a lot of things. I like sugar in my tea. Yeah, sorry, mate. I like something in my my other sort of tea, no, you can't have that. I like beer and wine of an evening. No, sorry. Do you know what I mean? They had quite a lot of things, this couple. That I like the breadsticks when we go here, and I like the biscuits when we go there. And yes, and the lady last night, we always have popcorn at the cinema. Well, you can't have that anymore. I save popcorn for James Bond, which happens every 3 years. It's choices. And my word of the week is choice. I've blown it slightly, but I'll explain to you why when we get there. But a lot of, I think, I've talked them down from I'll never be able to give up my family bar of whole nut to yes, you will actually if you just put nice, delicious whole protein and lots of yum, yum, yum fat in your mouth instead, and you won't be hungry. And when you're not hungry, you can relax your hold on the thing you think you're addicted to.
Yeah. It's interesting because I watched a Life Full of Meaning video the other day, and the lady who gave you such a lovely testimony.
Yes.
And she is, you only ever see her from the shoulders up, but she is visibly slimmer.
Oh, and her complexion improved within, she had a face which is very pretty anyway, started, her skin loss started to look radiant within 4 weeks, maybe a bit longer. And the lovely thing about her story, and it's so indicative of the whole journey, is that she had 90 days with me as well, but 1-to-1. And she, because of her thing is a video, she made a video every week, week 1, week 2, week 3. Week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7. Week 7, she just stopped because the whole thing just wasn't an issue anymore.
Oh, wow. That's
but
amazing.
She's in the group, and she's shared all 7 of those videos in the group for people to see how she got on week by week, which is so generous of her. Yeah. But, week 7, it's like, I can't even be bothered to make a video about this anymore. It's not even a thing. But in the first week, she says, "Oh, shut up about the cake already." She's so funny.
But they do like their cake, those two, don't they?
They do. And, the lovely, handsome husband who didn't really go in for it hook, line and sinker, but obviously ate the same meals as her, he lost weight too.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very good. Very nice. I'm really thrilled to see how this will turn out for you.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting, because Marion is a very close mate of mine, and she does it in Ireland with Slimming World, and it's interesting that the two of us, having found our own respective fix for our own respective problem, are now using that to heal people in this similar way. And it's absolutely life-changing. If you thought business coaching or life coaching was life-changing, it's nothing to seeing people give up addiction and drop poundage easily, particularly when that's been my challenge all my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, and mine. Good stuff. Well, there you go.
What's fueled yours?
Well, I've got a very woo-woo story for you.
Oh, my God.
No, I've got 2, actually, in fact.
Good. 2 woo-woo stories.
Yeah, but this is the first one.
Okay.
Right, so I have, as you know, been working on building up my membership site, Clicks and Ease Academy, which is coming along very nicely. We've just come to the end of the first year, and the first 2 clients have renewed, which is great. And I've got another 4 or 5 renewing in August, so we'll see how many of those do. And it's easier to sell annual memberships than monthly, which is something that astonished me.
Hurrah.
And as you know, I've also dabbled with the Done For You service, which is where people love the process but realise they're never going to do it themselves if left to themselves.
And last week you told us there was a lady that wanted you to do that for her.
Well, I was working up to that. She is not just... Okay, let's go back a little bit. So about 2 years ago, Judith, I sort of started to think that I'd quite like to work in the personal development world, because they all...
I know, because they have 100,000 audiences, don't they?
Exactly. They've got huge audiences, and they don't have a blooming clue, and they're rubbish at doing their own their marketing and running their own businesses. And I started to think that, who would it be? It would be someone who's good, but the thing is, I couldn't work for someone who I didn't relate to their topic. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And I had a really, really successful client who I was able to get, clicks and for at ridiculously cheap amounts compared with everyone else. That was what opened my eyes to the rabid nature of this market. But I couldn't relate to what she was selling. So I didn't want to go any deeper into it rather than just running the Facebook ads for her. Well, this other person is an expert in her field. She's just stepping into her place in the limelight. And she's just realised that she is probably the UK's foremost expert on this. And she's also a really, really deeply nice person. I've known her for years. And the best thing of all is that she's able to come and be a client for me. And I'm not actually thinking of her as a client. I'm thinking of her as a partner going forward. Because we could make something huge out of this. But she's able to afford to work with me in a way that is rewarding for me, and which will mean that I will give her my absolute ultimate attention, because we gave her some advice 10 years ago that enabled her to become financially free.
Yeah.
And I'm moved to tears when I think about that. And I didn't even know it till last year. But I went to stay with her because she paid for me to come down for dinner and a day. And we talked about that. And she said, it's something you and I told her when she was at a very low ebb 10 years ago. And it's just completely transformed her life.
Yeah.
And now I get the privilege of being able to work with her again to transform her life again.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Well, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Can you talk for a minute? I'm a bit overcome.
Yes, I can. Well, as you know, I work with her too, so I know exactly who you're talking about and what you're talking about, and I do like her field, and she is an expert, and she's been well received recently when she's come out of hiding a bit. Yeah. And there's something else she's doing this week you probably know about, which I'm terribly proud of her for doing because it's a funky thing. She's a top bird, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I respect her a lot.
Well, I'm feeling better now. So you can...
Was that one of two stories you were going to tell us?
Yeah, no, I'm saving the other one for later.
For later on, okay.
Every time I think about that, I just get goosebumps because that's a 10-year fairy.
Well, that happens to you and I both. Don't you wish that you and I both could telescope that period?
Yes.
That it was 10 days or 10 weeks, not 10 years.
Yes, but you know what it's done? It's because, I've been flapping about looking for the right kind of client, and I sort of had an inkling about 2 years ago that this might be the right kind of client for me.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I've had to kiss a few frogs, and they've not been frogs in themselves. I don't want to say that. No. It's just been the wrong kind of business. It's not been the people. They've been lovely. It's been the wrong kind of business. Yeah. And so really, perhaps you have to go around kissing a few businessy frogs before.
Well, I think you have to be in business a long time. You have to have longevity. I never really know how you say that word, longevity, but you have to be around. And it's a very salutary tale for people who start up in business and think they're going to make it between now and Christmas.
Yeah. And the other thing I asked her was, what tipped you over? What made you come back? What in the last year, because we've hardly communicated in the last year because she's been really, really busy doing her thing. Yeah. And I said, what was it? And, I was trying to pin down, because I've been reviewing my social media, and I was trying to pin down what was it. And she said, I get your emails. They bring me back to your blog. I've been aware that you've been doing this and, that you're still doing it. And I've watched a few, obviously listened to the podcast. Hello there. Yeah. And, so it's a real amalgamation of all my social media. Yes. That has kept her in touch with what I'm doing and what I'm still doing and what I can do for her.
So here's a question I'm going to ask you on the podcast, but I don't expect you to answer it on the podcast unless you can do it in a way that protects our clients' confidentiality. Can you remember what it was that we told her 10 years ago?
Yes, it was. I do. And I can say it. It was to refinance her property. She had a very high equity property and she was going through some challenges. And we said, well, why are you sitting on all that equity? It's not doing anything for you. Why don't you refinance?
What did you do with it instead?
She lived on it initially for a while, and then she started investing it into her then existing business. Yes. And of course, the London property market just went absolutely mental. So,
she was in London at the time, was she? Because she isn't.
Yeah, and we used to say that thing of your property's going to double in value every 10 years.
Well, that couldn't happen now. Doesn't happen now. So she was very lucky about the timing of that.
But she took action. She took a brave step, which a lot of people was contrary to popular wisdom at the time. And she took a brave step, and it helped her at the time. And then she was able then to reap the rewards.
Yeah, pleased for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So let's move on to focus of the week then.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to read you the question that
go.
I'm a very techie VA, and I keep hearing everyone, including Nicola on the podcast, talking about outsourcing to people overseas for $10 an hour. I'm based in the UK and charge more than that per hour, but I'm much more efficient and so much faster, as I know the various software that people use inside out. I know about internet marketing, websites, direct response, copywriting, funnel strategy, so I bring much more to the table in terms of what I can do, not to mention troubleshooting, using my initiative and my ability to see future implications of current client actions, etc. How do I get across the value and compete in this environment? Damn good question, I thought.
Yes, I think it is a good question, actually. Do you want to start, or shall I go?
Yeah, you go first, and while I gather my thoughts.
Well, I don't, to this lady, Anon, I don't use people from the third world at $10 an hour. I don't have any, I would, it's not that I have any issues with those. I can't be bothered to look for them or build a relationship with them. And so that when I use a techie VA with all your skill set, I do pay your hourly rate or the equivalent of your hourly rate. It means I can afford less of the time than if I were using the $10 people, but American and British VAs charging what they're worth is my choice. So I want also to talk about the word compete, but before we do talk about the word compete, I think you've got to have the courage. I'm going to give you some general advice, and I hope Nicola's going to give you some specific advice. I think you've got to have the courage of convictions. When I was an accountant, which was up until 2007, I was in exactly the same position as you. I was more expensive than everybody else, but I could do it in 2 days a week that took them 5. So I charged what they charged for 5 days a week, and I only worked two days a week to do it. But I was very confident of my abilities. If you're confident of your abilities, you know you're faster, you know these things inside and out. I'm going to come back to your part of your question about getting the value across in a minute. I think the right client for you will see the value, and I wouldn't think of it as competition. That's my contribution to this. And I'll say more about that if you want me to in a minute, Nicola. You go. Talk about the marketing aspects of this and the value of this person's skill set.
Yeah, well, you said it yourself. You said you can't be bothered to find them. And what was the other thing you said?
Train them and work out how to communicate with them and teach them. You know, sometimes when you've worked with those people, you've made training videos for them to follow and things, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was the word you missed out, but I wanted to highlight was train. People don't realise that if you get these people, they might be very bright and their English might be fantastic, but they will not know how to do what you want them to do. Because if they did know that, they'd be doing it for themselves.
Yes.
And if they were entrepreneurial in the slightest. And of course, as an employee, you don't want someone to be entrepreneurial. You want someone who is happy to do a good job and tick things off a list and get paid well for it. Mm. Now, the issue that you've got is being compared to cheap labour overseas is that you have to be able to communicate the value. And so, Judith, when you used to go and talk to a new client and they say, well, you're charging so much more than everyone else, and did you used to say, but I do in 2 days what they do in 5?
I don't know, I would say, yes, if they pushed me on the fee, but I don't know that I would, it wouldn't mostly come to that. I mean, these days, for instance, I have clients who do what I used to do then, and they can't even charge as much now as I used to charge then because of all of the introduction of these systems where everybody has a go at doing their own accounting. Yeah. So the value of accounting hasn't gone up in the 20 years since I sold my business, which is another good reason I'm glad I got out. But, I had a lot of strengths that were over and above the accounting that I brought of value to their business, which is exactly what this lady is describing here. Yeah. I know about internet marketing, I know about websites, direct response copywriting, funnel strategy. She's an expert. And I know what she's saying, which it is frustrating when you have an awareness that, yes, there are people out there that'll do anything cheaper, but, pay peanuts, get monkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, so how does one then communicate those strengths first of all, you have to do some marketing, because if you just wait for people to come to you, they're obviously shopping for your service, and they're going to be shopping around. They're going to be talking to other people too. Those people might be cheaper. You don't know what they're...
Yeah, you probably want a strong team of referrers who use you and know that it saves time and money.
Yeah. And then you need to be able to communicate that difference, don't you, on whatever you send, those referrers send.
Yeah, but I probably wouldn't do it negatively. So I wouldn't do, why do I charge 5 times what the Philippine... No. I would do it positively, to demonstrate, how much I know about internet marketing, how much I know about websites, how much I know about direct response. Lots of topics here for blogging, videoing, being everywhere online, demonstrating her expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this person doesn't want that many clients, then referrals are the way to go, because someone who's been referred to you is not going to be shopping. They actually just...
Well, in the world of the VA, referrals is quite normal.
Yeah, yeah.
But hang on.
I'd stop thinking about it as competition.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't. I think there's chalk and cheese. I think that is real coffee versus instant.
God, I wouldn't touch instant coffee.
Well, exactly. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. I can drink both of them, actually. I don't, but I can. Do you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is I could use this expensive British VA, or I could probably find a third world person that would work for me. But I wouldn't think of them as the same thing at all.
No, absolutely. And I keep having a thought that's hovering in the back of my mind, and it keeps going away again. It's about being able to demonstrate your value, isn't it? You said that a while ago, and that's why I started the challenges, because you said, how can one demonstrate one's value to as many people as possible, as many as it takes to achieve your goals?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to do it, because you become positioned as an expert and a trusted advisor and confidant, and then people aren't going to quibble about your fees, are they?
Yeah, well, I think there's another thing here as well, because her situation is very similar to mine, which is if she's not full up, then she's got time in the day to be marketing. And if I weren't doing with a well-paid VA work for clients, I'd be marketing, literally. Two roles, A or B, switch into it. So don't do a little dribble of marketing. Make it, 30, 40, 50% of what you do until you're full up. And when you're full up, you can drop it back down to 30% and 20% and keep the funnel going. But, get well known, be visible. I mean, in the VA world, there's so many opportunities for talking. They have conferences, I wonder if she's got one client who is ideal and in what niche that client is. Because actually, if you've got one client who pays well for your expertise, there will be other people in that same niche. I remember the lady that makes podcasts for other people had a client who was a plastic surgeon. If you've got a well-paid client who's happy to pay a wealthy client who's happy to pay you your hourly rate, then there will be other people in similar lines of work, and I go and pitch to them. Yeah. Look what I can do for people like you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's so much easier than doing this sort of broad brush thing and hoping people find you.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that the people in certain industries might be a bit worried about using a VA who is also in the same industry.
Well, it doesn't have to be the same industry. It needs to be the same type of industry. Do you see what I'm saying? Somebody like a plastic surgeon earns well. Who else earns well and doesn't want to learn how to do this? So come out of the entrepreneurial sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Go and find someone who's similar to in qualities, but just a different market. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. Now, when we talk about using someone from the Philippines for $10 an hour on this podcast henceforth, let's try and qualify it by saying, but of course you'll need to train them, and they are not going to have an initiative, and you are going to have to tell them exactly what to do, because that's the thing we've been missing out, isn't it? You can't buy initiative and a business partner effectively for $10 an hour. You just can't.
Well, it's very similar to what you said about in your woo-woo story. You're going to be well rewarded because she recognises your expertise and how valuable that is to her business. Now, when I hired an American VA to help me with 22 Social, I think her charge was $90 an hour, and I was happy to pay it because she had knowledge I didn't have, and I didn't want to learn how to do it. So, I pay the going rate for the expert I want when I want it. And
because they shortcut everything, don't
yes,
they?
They do. Yes. Everything. Yeah. And I think this person should be confident of that there are enough people prepared to do that she can make a cracking living.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's very good. I think we've covered that.
But let's just double check, because let's just go to how do I get across the value?
Yeah, well, you do it by demonstrating your expertise, don't you? And also
explaining how that expertise can be used to make money for the client.
Yes.
And save money for the client.
Yes.
Both.
Make or save, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to pay $25 an hour or £25 an hour or £50 an hour, that person is quite likely to get the job done in half the time it would take you to train and then supervise.
Absolutely, if not more. And also, you just don't want the right sort of client doesn't want that in their hair, so they're going to trust you as a partner. And the last part of this question is, and compete in this environment. They're two completely different ponds. I wouldn't even think about it. I'd forget all thoughts of competition, let it fall away. If people want those people, they can go and have them. If people want you, they can come and have you.
Yeah. And the other thing is just on that topic, if you're then going into, the market of how do you distinguish yourself from other techie VAs at the same price point as you?
Yes, that's a better question, actually. Yes.
Yeah. You do it by becoming Matt Duggan does Facebook Lives and shows people how to do really simple things, but people absolutely love him for it, and he does a really good job of it because he's making himself stand out from the crowd. He's making himself friendly and personable and approachable and the expert. And, go and have a look at Matt Duggan, what he does on Facebook, if you're listening to this. He does a superb job of making what he does really stand out and it's like what I did with the Acacia. There were something like 50 bed and breakfasts in Worthing. And I managed to distinguish mine because we did a website, we did a blog, we did a weekly newsletter. We made people feel that they were coming to stay with friends when they arrived.
Well, a very good question is, how can I distinguish myself?
Yeah, and demonstrate my expertise. Yeah, that's and people relate to people, so you can distinguish yourself just by being yourself and letting people get to know you, as we do in lots of different ways.
Yep. But it doesn't have to be a Facebook video if that makes your skin crawl, lady listener, because you can do that in all sorts of ways.
Yes, you can, and we often demonstrate in very different ways how we market ourselves, you and I, don't we?
Yes, and I've got a little story on that nature as we go along.
Okay. Word of the week, then.
Yes, mine's choice, as I slightly let slip earlier on. And the reason why is because in low carbing, we avoid use of diety words like, I can't have X. You can, you just have to work out whether or not that's what you want to spend your carb allowance on. So it's a choice about what you put in your cake hole, which is an expression that's been given to me somebody this week that I appreciate very much in this context.
Yeah. Very good. Mine's patience, because it has taken me 10 years to attract this. Well, we've danced with each other over the last 10 years in lots of different guises. And, I'm an overnight success, Judith.
Yes, you are. You are.
Hilarious. It takes 10 years to do anything. Except, have you been watching The Voice Kids?
No.
Oh, some of those are 7 years old and 10 years old and 11 years old, and they can't have been singing for the entire time. So they are prodigious talents. So there you go. Patience is my word of the week.
Okay.
Project updates.
You go first.
Okay. I'm as you know, I'm taking a bit of time off July and August from my social media things, apart from this podcast. And I've been thinking about it and reviewing all my social media activities. And I asked this new client whether, what kept me first in mind. And she said, well, she dips in and out of all of it pretty much. So that doesn't really help.
That's quite typical of her personality, though, if you think about it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do that, and I think social media is so hard to quantify because of that. I do believe in the concept of being on lots of different platforms in lots of different formats and enabling you to demonstrate your expertise and differentiate yourself in the way that the client wants to consume at that particular time.
And I think as long as you're visible as well, that's what counts. I mean, we could never throw at you the criticism that you're not visible.
Well, I'm going to be very invisible for the next month or so, and I'm feeling quite a state of panic about it.
Well, let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens indeed. So just to let you know, I had a quick look at the podcast numbers, which go on the up, actually.
Okay.
We're up 82,146 total downloads, and every week when we release a new episode, we were getting an average of 150 downloads on the first day, and that's just gone up consistently for the last 3 or 4 episodes to over 200.
Oh, good.
So it's not a gigantic shift, but it is quite
that is significant, actually.
Yeah, we've been having conversations about this podcast, and I just wanted you to know those numbers.
Okay, I have news in project updates. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, yeah, go on then.
Well, last week you'll remember that the topic du jour was de-niching.
Yes.
And I would like to take the opportunity here to shout out to those who encouraged me, and they are Sam, Olivia, Jeanette, Nikki, Jill, Natasha, Irene, Susan, Margaret, and Michi. A good percentage of whom listen to the podcast. So thank you, ladies. And they all agreed with me after last Friday's newsletter. It was a good idea for me and in sync with their own ideas for themselves right now too. So there were coincidences and connections. People wrote in going, you'll never guess what, I was having exactly the same thought. And Sam beautifully said, you had me at de-niching, which I thought was wonderful. So 10 women, one of whom sold I'd never heard of before. So I sold beautiful art, had a fantastic website. I want to buy her art one day. I've told her that. And I've already told the lady I want to do when I overhaul my website eventually, have a look at this one. It's beautiful. So all good things flowed from that newsletter. And the last handful of my newsletters, where I've been more authentic than ever, I think, have been really well received, even by normal standards. And best news of all, the whole thrust of it was, I just want to be available to converse with anybody about anything. And I have my first one booked in for this Saturday.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, somebody's taken me up on it already.
And you don't know what you're going to be talking about?
I do roughly, yes.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm not going to reveal that here.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's interesting.
Yeah. Have the courage of your convictions.
Yes.
And also, zeitgeist, I'm feeling that, or my crowd are feeling that. They're encouraging me in that. They're doing it themselves. No surprises, really, when you think about it. But it's lovely to know that we're all sufficiently advanced in our own businesses that we can start to make those decisions for ourselves.
Yeah.
Rather than having to slavishly follow what I call the 101 advice, the beginner's advice. Yeah. They're branching out and they're resisting norms and they're doing it their way, which is exactly right.
Well, that leads me very nicely into the first of my Who or What's Impressed.
You've got multiples. That's impressive.
Oh, yeah, 3 this week. I just come off a call with Penny Power, who...
Oh, yeah. I remember, yes.
The original founder of the Academy. And she has just finished her book, which I won't tell you anything about just yet, except to know that it's going to be a very authentic book, a very true book, a book about lots of things that, were not just on the surface. And it sounds an absolutely avid read. I did point her in your direction because she was saying, now I need to figure out a marketing plan for it. And I said, well, I can help you there. So, I point her in your direction. She might well be booking in to talk to you.
Okay.
And it was really nice because, again, I was a member of the Academy about 10 years ago. And
I remember you were a Black Star.
I was a lifetime Black Star, which is, very nice. So she really impressed the hell out of me in that short time we were talking. We were actually talking about cash flow management. And because I told her that I managed to buy a hotel no money down without any clear idea about how to run a cash flow forecast properly. And so we had a lot of laughs about how that came about. The second one is I've just redone my cash flow, actually, brought it all up to date. And I've also just brought my Xero up to date for my accountant, the lovely Richard. And so I've just skimmed through the book Profit First by Michael Makowski. Do you remember how we talked about that a while ago?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that was really good.
So that's impressed you again, has it?
It has impressed me again, yes.
Okay.
I just had to look up because I wasn't sure what one particular line it was, and I just had to refresh my memory on it.
Okay.
Skimmed through the whole thing. Very good. Highly recommended. And finally, I'm going to go a bit woo on you. So do you want to tell me yours, and then we'll finish on the woo-woo bit?
Yes, I'm happy to. I'm going to tell you about a woman called Gertrude Bell.
Uh-huh.
Recently, I've discovered some very nice films on Netflix, which is strange because I never normally watch the films on Netflix. I've usually seen them before they get to Netflix. But one of them, which I'd never heard of, and I don't know why, and thank goodness I didn't read the reviews until afterwards because the reviews were dreadful. But the film is called The Queen of the Desert, and it stars Nicole Kidman as the Queen of the Desert, who is a real live person called Gertrude Bell. And Nicole was extraordinary in this film, luminous, as was, I'm not sure Gertrude was. The picture of Gertrude on Wikipedia doesn't look luminous, to be honest. But it's chock full of handsome boys, James Franco, Damian Lewis, Robert Pattinson playing Lawrence of Arabia. It got some dreadful reviews, as I say, but I found it interesting and profoundly moving. But let me tell you about Gertrude Bell. She was born in 1968 and she died, 1868, and she died in 1926. She went to Oxford. She was a English writer, traveller, political officer, administrator and archaeologist who explored, mapped and became highly influential to British imperial policymaking due to her knowledge and contacts built up through extensive travels in the desert. She went into the desert on a camel with a team of local chaps on camels. for a long time in Syria, Mesopotamia, Asia Minor, and Arabia. And along with Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence, she helped support the Hashemite dynasties in what is today Jordan as well as Iraq. She played a major role in establishing and helping administer the modern state of Iraq. I'm reading this to you from Wikipedia, utilizing her unique perspective from her travels and relations with tribal leaders throughout the Middle East. During her lifetime, she was highly esteemed and trusted by British officials and exerted an immense amount of power. This was one woman in the 20s, okay? She has been described as one of the few representatives of His Majesty's government remembered by the Arabs with anything resembling affection. So everybody said, don't go into the desert, you'll be slaughtered by Arabs. She went into the desert, and her reputation preceded her, and these warring, tribes and factions all came and met her and threatened her and took them off to meet their leader, and the leader was mesmerized by her and respected her, and the leader had usually been to Oxford himself, so they talked about war poets and lovely things they had in common, and she was an academic, and she wrote notes about it, and she came to understand these Arabic tribes, these desert tribes, in the way that nobody else did. And she was just a woman.
Extraordinary.
100 years ago. And the film's really good, but so is the real story,
Nobody's ever heard of her.
No, I hadn't heard of her.
No, typical, isn't it?
Isn't it? 100 years ago as well. If this was like 50 years ago, we'd be oppressed. But, just around before, during and after the First World War. When, women weren't allowed to cross the road in England by themselves, let alone go to the Middle East and then get on a camel and go into the desert.
I know. There have been some extraordinary females, haven't there?
Oh, there have. There have.
If you delve behind any good story, there is always a woman involved.
I agree, yes. But they had to do it, in Gertrude's day, they had to do it from behind the curtain, not in front of it. And she said, stop that for a game of soldiers. I'm going to go out. And everybody said, don't do it. She ignored them. Right. And lots of handsome men fell in love with her. And Lawrence of Arabia was gayish, or totally gay, I'm not altogether sure. So they had a great friendship, which didn't involve any of that. But they worked together. He was trying to make things better for those people against the awful British imperialist policymakers. Yeah. And she was just received for herself rather than any kind of, I don't know. The film's really lovely. I loved it. I was moved by it. I got to the end of it and I couldn't stop raving about it. But then, of course, when you go to Wikipedia and look it up, it's even more fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if there's an autobiography or something.
That would be interesting. Yeah. She was a writer a lot. So I imagine, while you're telling me your woo-woo, I'll have a look on Amazon.
I imagine she was a friend of... Okay, here we go. This is I might reduce myself to tears again, you never know.
Okay, another woo-woo. Look at you.
Yes, I know. Woo. It's Tut. If you don't know, and I always assume everyone knows about Tut, a note from the universe. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. They send you beautiful emails every day that are personalised according to what you put in, when you sign up. It's free, and it's very, very inspirational. So
before you say any more, you're going to talk about today's?
I'm going to talk about today's, yeah.
Because it was fantastic, wasn't it?
Well, it just resonated for me, and obviously resonated for you.
It did, totally.
Yeah. Go for it, Nicola. Not once, but again and again and again, whatever it takes. Because in the end, with arms held high in the winner's circle, beaming with joy, as light as a feather, crying your eyes out, you'll see how fantastically disproportionate the rewards are for the effort expended, the risk taken, and the price paid, no matter how many false starts you've endured. And you'll be astounded by how quickly you made it, even though when the going got tough and your spirits ebbed, you thought you'd never, ever, ever see the day. Tally-ho.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I loved it. And then you've always got to scroll down and see the little bit.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
It says, oh, God, Nicola, I'm so proud of you. But God's in inverted commas because Tut is supposed to be God. So
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's so good. Go and sign up. Where would you go? You go to...
It's tut.com. Yeah.
Tut.com. That's where you go.
And you have to fill in your details, including your sort of big vision. And if your big vision changes, remember, go back to the website and change it. Otherwise, it's out of date and it doesn't sync with you.
Yeah. Well, my big vision has changed, but it still works for me.
Mine does too. Yeah. Right. So good news from Amazon. Gertrude Bell's written lots of books. A Woman in Arabia, The Writings of the Queen of the Desert. Persian Pictures, From the Mountains to the Sea. The Desert and the Sound. I've no idea what sound is. Travels in Palestine and Syria. There is the book that led to the film. Somebody called Georgina Howell seems to have done a lot of writing with her and a lot of editing around her work and wrote the book that became the film. Daughter of the Desert, The Extraordinary Life of Gertrude Bell. There's loads of, complete letters. There's loads of stuff in here. Oh, good tip, Nicola, yeah.
I love books that have got letters in them.
The Arab War. The Hafiz poems. Oh, she learnt, a lot of these Middle Eastern languages so that she could read their poets in their original tongue.
Yeah, amazing.
Brilliant.
Amazing woman by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, well, that's us done for this week.
Yes, marvellous. See you next week.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
How do they do it? Not a care and suffering. Wanna step into their world. Who holds the key?
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.